Today we're going to talk tools, and I specifically want to talk about my top 5 basic tools for firearm owners. And this came about from a comment I got from a viewer the other day. They picked up the firearm, it had an optic, the battery was dead on the optic, and it was used, picked everything up used, and so it didn't come with a wrench to take the optic off, to change the battery, yada yada. And most firearm owners anyway would know that, you know, the screws and stuff for optics usually pretty standard, right? So it kind of blew my mind. I was like, man, this person doesn't have hex bits or star bits. I don't understand. They're relying on what comes in a package with the original product. That's weird. And then I got to thinking a little further, and I thought, you know, actually it's not weird, because, you know, when we look at people today, I mean, there's people that don't know how to change a tire. They certainly can't do basic plumbing or electrical or woodwork or metalwork. They're just not tool fanatics like I am. Like that seems to be the DIY, the tool fanatic thing. Seems to be a thing of the past, right? And so speaking of that, if you out there are a firearm owner and a tool fanatic, you've probably got a top 5 basic tools for firearm owners as well. Definitely put that down below. But what I wanted to focus on with this list was tools that are not just useful for firearms. Yes, firearm owners definitely need these if they're going to clean and maintain their firearms and stuff like that. But they're also useful and can be useful around the house with the vehicle, whatever. And so to start out, let's talk screwdrivers. I think it's a big one. And you could have a 40-piece screwdriver set, sure, but a bit driver set. And I'll tell you an extra little thing of why, but a bit driver set, I think, is a little better. Probably coming in around $15 for a basic version. And the reason why is not all Phillips and flatheads are created equal. And so if you pick up a set of a bunch of different screwdrivers, odds are you're going to run into, in the firearm world, you're going to run into, hey, this one is too thick, this one's too thin, this one's too wide, this one's too narrow, right? And you're going to get a variety of those things in a bit driver set. It's also going to come with some, usually some other specialty things, some torque, some hex, and stuff like that. And obviously a screwdriver, super useful, if I can talk, around the house as well. So speaking of the hex and torques that may come in that bit driver set, the next one up is going to be an actual set of, you know, your standard, your metric, and your torques or your star, L wrench, whatever you want to call them. And again, I think you can get into a set, each of those 3, for around $15 or so. And they have a couple of perks, I think, especially in the firearm world, but, you know, maybe other places as well. Have some perks over, you know, in addition to having them in addition to the bits, right? And I think that one of those perks is lining up screw holes and pinholes. You can pick a slightly smaller hex bit, let's say, and put it in there and kind of line everything up. And sometimes that can help. Also, they're going to be considerably longer in length. So if you've got screws and things that are recessed, provided that they have a hex or a star head, then you can get down in that recessed area and get those screws out. A lot of things nowadays around the house and in the automotive world have hex and star bits. So again, pretty handy for other things as well. Next is a big one. I mean, I think it would rival probably the screwdriver as being the top dog. And I haven't really put these in any order, but that's going to be a socket set. Now, I would say, and you can pick up a socket set, a basic smaller socket set for, again, probably $15. I would say probably go with 3/8 drive, and then find a set that ranges from, and I'm going to give you the standard measurements here, but you want one that contains standard and metric. Keep that in mind. But I would say in the standard range, at a minimum 1/4 inch, and at maximum 3/4 inch. So if you go beyond that range, that's cool, that's smooth, that's fine. One of the reasons I say 1/4 inch is we go back to the screwdriver, the bit driver. Those are 1/4 inch. So in a tight space, right, under a sink, in a cabinet, water heater closet, vehicle, or maybe even some type of a firearm application, you could always switch over to that 1/4" drive socket and ratchet, as opposed to the bit driver handle. Maybe it just won't fit in those spaces because it's a little bit too long. So, and then you've got it's obvious the applications across the board for a socket set, right? So definitely worth, I think, the investment there. The next one up, I would say, is a punch set. And you may think, man, punch set, I don't know that it has a lot of application outside of the firearm world. And I wouldn't disagree too heavily with that, but it is a major thing in the firearm world. So I would say this is going to be probably the most expensive item that's on the list today. You're probably going to have to drop about $20 for, even a basic set. But you can find a basic set that's got the steel punches, the brass punches, a lot of times even nylon punches, and it includes the hammer with various heads for the hammer, brass, and again, nylon and rubber and steel and all of that good stuff, because you want to be using the proper tool for the proper job. You don't want to hammer on a metal with another very, very hard metal and potentially scratch it or mess it up, right? But what are you talking about working on door hinges, or especially maybe, in the vehicle world, or, some type of a straight up mechanical device, then, yeah, mechanics, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, mechanical devices and mechanics. Punches are going to be used as well. So I still think it's a good investment. Now, hang tight after we do this next one. But this next one is one that took some thought, because I was thinking about pliers. I was thinking about channel locks, vice grips, maybe a precision pliers set, right? And I thought, no, in the gunsmithing world, and then around the house, there's something I use far more often than pliers, and that's hemostats. And I'm not talking about little bitty short goofy hemostats. If you're going to get the hemostats, get the at least probably an 8-inch pair. Tell you why in a second. But with hemostats, they act sort of like pliers. They've got the texture to them, or the little ridges, so you can grab onto things. They're designed for holding obviously smaller things. So if we're talking about pins and springs and screws in the firearm world, well, there you go. But in the regular world, I've used them to hold wires temporarily while I solder. I've used them to pinch off different hoses and lines and things to stop the flow of whatever was going through them temporarily. And the reason that you can do that is because the handles will have locks. Now, here's why I said get the longer pair. The bigger the item is you're trying to clamp, hemostat's obviously designed for like surgical medical use. But the bigger the item is you're trying to clamp down, the harder it's going to be, because you don't have enough handle length or room. If you get longer handles, a lot of times you can bend those to your wheel, so to speak, and still lock that down. Be that on a larger pin or screw or something like that. But I'm telling you, for springs, especially in the firearm world, hemostats are an absolute lifesaver. Again, if you're a tool fanatic, make sure you're dropping those 5 suggestions that you have down in the comments below. But since we've come in now well under $100 in the basic budget range of these 5 tools, I'm going to throw 6th at you. And I think this is super important in a lot of ways. Whether you're working under the sink, the hood of the car, whether you're working on that firearm, being hands-free is important, and being able to see what you're working on is important. So a headlamp, I think it would be the number 6. And I would say go with one that has varying degrees of illumination. You don't want a blaring light if you're looking at something up close necessarily. And then probably USB rechargeable. And then you don't have to be looking for batteries and stuff like that. And that particular example, I think you can find those for maybe the $10 range, which puts us, for all 6 recommended tools, still under $100. What a deal. So if you're out there and you don't have very many tools, you're not a tool fanatic, it's time to start. It's time to have things around not just to maintain your firearms, but maintain things around the house and get yourself out of a pinch. And even the basic tools, the cheaper stuff, is going to do that. So budget away, sneak away, squirrel away a little bit of money, and pick these up. To help you with that, I've got a link down below to some things over on Amazon. As a matter of fact, the 6 things that we've talked about that I think are pretty good options for the beginner, just the basic stuff. But again, you can check out Harbor Freight, you know, your big box stores and hardware stores and all that stuff. Very likely going to have most, if not all, of the things that we talked about. Maybe not the hemostats, but odds are probably everything else. That's going to, I think, do it for this one. And yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Bye.